They say death is the end. But what if it isn't? This is not just any story. This is the real testimony of a 9-year-old boy who died for 3 minutes in the emergency room and came back with a message that would forever change his family's life. And maybe yours too. His name is Matthew, and this is what he saw in heaven. Matthew was like any other child, curious, joyful, the kind of boy who asked impossible questions and believed in things adults had long forgotten. He lived with his parents in a small town in southern Mexico. A simple life, filled with school, soccer, and hugs. But one autumn afternoon, everything changed. Matthew began to feel a sharp pain in his chest. At first it was mild, then unbearable. Within minutes, he collapsed, unconscious. His desperate mother rushed him to the nearest hospital, and there, among shouts, cold lights, and white coats, Matthew stopped breathing. The doctors did everything they could. 3 minutes without a heartbeat. 3 minutes without oxygen. 3 minutes without life. And yet, something happened. While his body lay motionless on the hospital bed, Matthew opened his eyes in another place. He later said it wasn't a hospital, nor was it a dream. I was floating, he explained, and everything was light, but not a light that blinds you, a light that embraces you. He said he felt a peace he had never known before. No pain, no fear, only love. And then, voices. "Welcome, little one," he heard. "It's not your time yet." Matthew saw a field full of radiant flowers. The sky wasn't blue, it was golden. And there was someone there. Someone he had never met. But who knew him? A tall figure with eyes full of infinite tenderness. "Tell your mother everything will be okay," the figure said. "And remember, love never dies." Suddenly, everything faded, and Matthew gasped awake in the emergency room. The first thing he saw was his mother's tears as she leaned over him, repeating his name again and again. "Matthew, Matthew," as if calling him was the only way to bring him back. Barely able to speak, he whispered, "Mom, I was with God." The doctors couldn't explain it. The monitor showed his heart had stopped for 3 minutes. He had been clinically dead, yet now he was awake, conscious, calm. In the days that followed, Matthew would not stop talking about that place. He said it was more real than this world, that time did not exist, that there were colors he had never seen, and a love he could never describe. The doctors listened in silence. One of them, a confessed atheist, left the room with tears in his eyes. "I don't know what that boy saw," he admitted, "but it made me question everything I believed." One night, as his mother tucked him into bed, Matthew took her hand. "Mom, don't be afraid about Dad anymore." She froze. Her husband had been unemployed and depressed for months. They had never spoken of it in front of Matthew. Yet somehow, he knew. "God told me something good is coming. Just wait." Days later, Matthew's father received an unexpected call, a new job opportunity, a stable project in another city, as if someone had intervened. Matthew's story began to spread among family, friends, neighbors. Whispers turned into chains of messages, tears, testimonies. A pastor came to meet him. A local channel interviewed him. Thousands who heard his story confessed they had regained their faith. When asked if he was afraid of dying, Matthew replied, "No, because over there, everything makes sense." And when asked what the most important thing he had learned was, he answered with words his mother would never forget. "Love never dies. And we are here to learn how to love. From that day on, Matthew was no longer just a child. He became a messenger, one who had crossed the border between life and eternity, and returned to tell us there is something more, something beautiful, something waiting for us when our moment comes. But until then, here on this earth, we still have the hardest and holiest task of all, to love. After his return, Matthew was never the same. Not because he was sick, but because he had seen something that changed the way he looked at the world. He said he now felt God's presence in the smallest things, in the song of birds, in the smile of a stranger, in silence itself. Everything speaks of him, Matthew said, but sometimes we don't hear it because we're too busy being afraid. Matthew's story crossed borders. His mother began to receive letters and calls from Argentina, Colombia, Spain, Peru. Messages from people who had lost loved ones, people on the edge of despair, people who had lost their faith. All of them said the same. Listening to what your son saw gave me hope. One day, an elderly woman called their home. She was weeping. She had lost her son in an accident. For months, she hadn't eaten properly, hadn't spoken to anyone, hadn't been able to sleep. But after hearing Matthew's testimony, something inside her broke and healed. If a place like what he saw exists, she said, then my son is okay. And maybe I can keep going too. And so we arrive at the reflection, slower, deeper, almost poetic. Not all of us believe in the same way. Some call it God, others call it the source, love, the light. But beyond the names there is a truth that unites us, that there is something more, that life does not end with a final breath, that true love is never lost. Matthew reminds us that death is not the end. It is only a change of scenery, a return home. And you, listening to this story right now, maybe you too needed a sign, a word, a spark of hope. If what Matthew saw was real, and in his heart there is no doubt, then maybe we can live with less fear and more faith. Because in the end, it is not about how long we live. It is about how much love we leave behind. What about you? Have you ever lived something you can't explain? Do you believe there is something beyond this life? Share your story in the comments. You might not be the only one.